In the heart of the Great Rift Valley, the once prosperous village of Endele was dying. The Golden River, the source of all life, had dried up after 3 years of relentless drought. Crops withered, livestock perished, and hunger gripped the people. The elders, desperate for salvation, sought the oracle, who revealed a chilling prophecy. Only the sacrifice of flesh in the name of love can bring the waters back. The villagers murmured in fear. Who would dare offer such a sacrifice? Among the villagers was Nyasha, a kind and beautiful young woman deeply in love with Adisa, the strongest hunter in Endele. Since childhood, they had been inseparable, their love as steady as the mountains. But the drought had changed everything. Food was scarce, and Adisa, once the pride of the village, was growing weaker by the day. One evening, as he sat by the dying fire, Nyasha watched him with sorrow in her heart. She knew she could not stand by and do nothing. The prophecy haunted her thoughts. A sacrifice of flesh. She knew the elders waited for someone to step forward. But no one had. That night, as the moon shone over the parched land, Nyasha made her decision. She would give her flesh to the river. The next morning, she stood before the elders and declared, "I will give my body to the river so that it may return to us." Gasps filled the air. Mothers wept. The elders warned her of the pain, the consequences, but she did not waver. Before dawn, Nyasha left for the Black Rock Mountain, where the spirit of the river dwelled. She walked alone through the dry lands, her feet cracking against the barren soil. The sun blazed overhead, her body weakening with every step. At the foot of the mountain, she met an old woman sitting by a dying fire. "You have come to give love's greatest sacrifice," the woman said. Nyasha nodded. "But are you ready to bear the weight of what you will lose?" Still, she did not falter. The old woman led Nyasha into a sacred cave, where a blade forged from the bones of ancestors lay waiting. "This blade has taken many sacrifices before. Now it calls for yours." Nyasha picked it up, feeling the weight of destiny in her hands. She placed the blade against her left breast, the place closest to her heart. She thought of Adisa, of their love, then closed her eyes. With one swift motion, she cut away her flesh. Pain unlike anything she had ever known ripped through her body. Blood spilled onto the dry earth. She collapsed, gasping, as the cave trembled around her. The moment Nyasha's sacrifice touched the ground, a golden mist rose from the cave. The earth rumbled, then from the depths of the mountain, the sound of rushing water filled the air. Weak and bleeding, Nyasha crawled to the entrance of the cave. Below, the river that had been lost for years was returning, winding its way back to Endele like a serpent of liquid gold. She had done it. As Nyasha stumbled back to the village, she heard cries of joy. The river had returned. The people danced in the water, their suffering washed away by the miracle. But when they saw Nyasha, weak and bleeding, silence fell. Adisa ran to her, horror in his eyes. "Why, Nyasha? Why did you do this?" "Because love is sacrifice," she whispered before darkness took her. For days, Nyasha drifted between life and death. The village healer worked tirelessly, treating her wound with herbs and prayers. The women of the village took turns watching over her. Adisa never left her side. He wept for her, for what she had done. He had always thought love was about strength, about protection. But Nyasha had shown him that love was something deeper, something that demanded pain, sacrifice, and selflessness. When Nyasha awoke, her body was weak, but her spirit burned bright. She had changed. The wound where her breast once was had scarred over, but in its place, a mark had formed, a symbol of the river, glowing faintly like the golden waters she had restored. The villagers whispered that she had been blessed by the spirits. Adisa held Nyasha's hand, tears in his eyes. "I should have been the one to sacrifice, not you," he said. But Nyasha only smiled. "We do not choose who must sacrifice. Love chooses for us." From that day on, Adisa vowed never to let Nyasha suffer alone. He would be her strength, just as she had been his. The river, now stronger than ever, carried whispers. The villagers claimed it spoke of Nyasha's name, that the spirits honored her sacrifice. The women of Endele began to wear beads shaped like a single breast, a tribute to her courage. They sang songs of her sacrifice, ensuring her story would never be forgotten. But not everyone rejoiced. Among the villagers was a woman named Sefu, who had long desired Adisa. She saw Nyasha's sacrifice not as love, but as a trick to gain power. "Why should she be worshipped for her pain?" she whispered among those who still held jealousy in their hearts. Sefu plotted against Nyasha. One night, she stole the sacred blade from the cave and declared that she too would make a sacrifice, one greater than Nyasha's. She cut her arm and bled into the river, expecting a greater blessing. But instead, the waters turned dark. A great storm arose. The river overflowed, flooding the village. The spirits were angry, for Sefu's sacrifice was not made in love, but in envy. Nyasha, still weak, stood before the river. "Spirits, punish only those who act in greed. My people are innocent." The storm ceased, and the river calmed. But Sefu vanished, taken by the waters. After that night, Nyasha was no longer just a woman, she was the guardian of the river. She understood its will, felt its pulse in her veins. She became the village's spiritual leader, guiding them with wisdom and love. Adisa and Nyasha lived long lives, their love never fading. Though Nyasha had lost a part of herself, she had gained something far greater, the love of her people, the gratitude of the spirits, and a bond with Adisa that no force could break. Generations passed, but the story of Nyasha, the woman who sacrificed her breast for love, lived on. Children grew up hearing her tale, women wore her beads, and the river that she had saved continued to flow, forever carrying her spirit. And so, in the village of Endele, love and sacrifice were never forgotten. Please share, like, comment and subscribe for more African stories.